Hello, my friends. So today I have another sort of variety video for you, something a little different. I guess you could call this a list video. I don't really know. Anyways, today we'll be going over 9 weapons. I think that could be like not really good, but like quote unquote good if they just had a tiny buff. So things that could use very small changes, and I think would be like actually be used then. So yeah. And obviously it's 9 because I have one for each class. So anyways, let's get into it with the first weapon. So the first weapon we have is for the Scout. It's the Sandman. What this weapon does is it lets you shoot a baseball at people, and if you hit them at some distance, it'll slow them down. It kind of sucks. It's pretty useless. There's really no reason to use it over any of the other sort of scout melees, and its downside is actually kind of bad. It takes minus 15 off your max health, which doesn't seem too bad, but I'm pretty sure that means you can get one shot by a rocket, because I think rockets do 112 at like super point blank range. This weapon actually used to be kind of crazy. It wouldn't just slow you down. It'd stun you at like medium range. So if you got hit by the Sandman, it would you couldn't fight back for like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds basically, and that was really annoying to play against. So they nerfed it. I should also mention it used to combo with the Flying Guillotine, the Cleaver for Scout. If you stun someone and hit him with the Cleaver, it would do crit damage. So it was a really good counter to heavies that was like impossible to counter or like play against. So my suggestion for this is basically keep it the same, but bring back, there was one mechanic I haven't mentioned, which is Moonshot, which was basically if you got a hit at max range, the enemy player wouldn't be able to move at all. So my suggestion now is bring back Moonshot, but instead of making it so people can't move, give them the old stun so they can't fight back for however many seconds, and bring back the Cleaver crit, but only do this if someone hits the baseball at max range, and then you can kind of fiddle around with the max range to make it balance. My thought with this is now the Sandman will actually be useful, but it'll take a lot more skill to actually pull off the crit combo or for it to be useful, because if you get a hit at medium range, you're basically not doing anything, because you're just slowing people down a little. But so sort of bring back the, I think it's called Moonshot? Yeah, but you know, bring back Moonshot, but only at long range, and don't have it as a complete stun anymore, because it used to do, like, if you hit Moonshot, it used to be you couldn't move at all, which was annoying. Just make it sort of the old medium range stun, and bring back the Cleaver combo, but only if you hit them at max range. And then if the if the max range isn't balanced, you can fiddle with it to make it longer if it need be. I think this would be a good rebalance for the weapon, because it would actually give people a reason to use it, and because you're only doing the stun at max range, it would actually give it a pretty high skill ceiling now, so it's something people could practice to get better at. The main problem with the old weapon was it was too easy to use and kind of gave you too much reward. Anyways, onto the soldier. So number 2 is the airstrike. This rocket launcher gives you a sort of decreased self-damage taken when you rocket jump, about 15%. And when you're in the air, you get increased attack speed, so you can sort of spam all your rockets at once. This gives it a very unique rocket jumping style, and sort of I guess a spammy play style. I'm not sure what you would want to call it, but you know, sort of like you're a bomber basically. And it gives it some interesting synergy with the gunboats and the base jumper. So my suggestion for the airstrike is pretty small. I think just give it like a 5 or 10% reload speed buff, something small, because there are certain situations where it does feel like the airstrike really can't keep up with stock. Like it just doesn't have enough killing power sometimes. I think giving it this sort of a very small increased reload speed will sort of it'll up the DPS just enough to sort of keep up with stock in more situations and actually be a side grade on par with stock, because I mean that's what unlocks are generally meant to be, is side grades. But yeah, that's sort of it for the airstrike. Just a very tiny reload buff, and I think it would be Right now it's pretty solid. I think it would be just like, you know, sort of gold standard for side grids then. On to the Pyro. So for Pyro, the weapon I chose is Gas Passer, which, I'm not sure if you could say it needs a small rework, but I looked over most of Pyro's weapons and I couldn't really find anything I think needs a rework. Most of them have a purpose now, so I don't know. Anyways, the Gas Passer, it's really not worth using over other other Pyro secondaries. It takes a minute to recharge, and once that minute is up, you get to throw it like Girardi, and it douses your enemies in gasoline, and they take afterburn damage. You can make the minute go faster by dealing damage. It's really not worth using over other Pyro secondaries. The effect is not worth waiting a minute for. You can't spam it out of spawn like Girardi if you're getting spawn camped. It's just kind of bad. I don't know. So my suggestion for it is I have a few different ones that you don't necessarily all have to do together, but I think any one of these would help it a decent amount. One would be make it spammable like Girardi. I think this would help if you're getting spawn camp. It sort of gives Pyro something to do while you're being spawn camped, because right now all you can really do, I guess you can air blast. Try to air blast if like a demo's spawn camping you, but it doesn't really, I don't know, Pyro doesn't have that many options right now. So that's my first suggestion, is maybe you could change the timer, or change it to be spammable like Girardi, but I actually like the timer mechanic, so suggestion number 2 is just reduce the timer. I don't know what amount of time would be balanced, maybe 30 seconds. If you're going to keep the effect the same, honestly, it could probably be like 15 seconds, because the effect is not powerful at all. My third suggestion is to give it a sort of mini explosive when you shoot people that are doused in fire or in gasoline. This is inspired by a MVM mechanic that, I mean, it does the same thing. Basically, you get explosions when you shoot people who are doused in gasoline. It would have to be rebalanced a bit, because I think in MVM, I mean, I don't know if it's still broken, but it's one of the strongest things in the game in MVM. People hate it. And you used to be able, I think, to get the Gas Passer back from just using, like, throwing it, just from the explosive damage. So, obviously you couldn't do that, but I think that explosion would actually give it sort of a niche. It'd give Pyro sort of a, it'd give him an area of effect weapon that isn't the Scorch Shot, because people want the Scorch Shot nerf. But yeah, anyways, those are my 3 main suggestions. Make it spammable like Girardi, reduce, keep it the way it currently is, so that you can't spam it, but it sort of builds up over time, but reduce the timer a lot, like 15 seconds or something. And then 3 is give it the MVM like explosion upgrade by default, but obviously that would have to be tweaked a little bit. But then it would at least be kind of interesting, because I don't think any of the other sort of throwable liquids in the game do damage. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true. I guess Girardi lets you do mini crits, but it doesn't actually do damage, so it would kind of feel more unique and interesting then. Anyways, on to the Demo Man. So, for the Demo Man, the item I have is the Caber. So this item is basically a grenade on a stick. When you hit someone with it, it explodes. It used to be extremely powerful. I think when it came out, it could one-shot medics, but that was a long time ago. I think in like 2013 or something. So anyways, they nerfed it, and they've changed it like 3 or 4 times since. I don't think Valve really knew what they wanted to do with it. My suggestion is sort of to give it a small tweak. As it stands, the Caber can one-shot snipers and other light classes, so clearly they intend it to be able to one-shot light classes, but it's inconsistent. Sometimes it'll do 125, sometimes it'll do 123. My main suggestion is to fix that. So I don't know how you fix that in the code, because Tf2 is a very weird mechanical game. I think you could either up the radius a bit, or sort of change how the radius scales, or you could up the base damage to like 135 or something, so not enough to one-shot medics or any other class, maybe like up it by 3 so it always does 125. But yeah, that's the main one. Just make it consistent so you can always one-shot snipers. And then my other suggestion is to get rid of the stupid weapon handling penalties. These weren't on it before, and no one was ever, as far as I know, no one's ever really bitched the Caber was like too good at handling, so I don't know why these are even here. They're kind of stupid. Yeah, I would just get rid of those and make it be able to consistently kill snipers. And then I think you have a fun weapon that isn't like too oppressive because it can't. I mean, it's not that threatening to medics. And another thing you could throw in, but you don't have to do this because I think just the sort of changes I've talked about so far would make it like a far more consistent weapon that people would love to use. As it stands, once you use the Caber, that's it until you go back to a resupply cabinet. So there's not really a way to earn it again without going back to spawn. I would maybe give the demo a way to earn it again. Obviously, this would have to be sort of balanced a little bit because you don't want people spam exploding. But I don't know, maybe sort of go on the gas passer system where the more you do enough damage and then you could get it back. But yeah, that would be the only other thing. But I don't think you have to do that. I think if you do these other changes, get rid of the stupid handling nerfs that exist for some reason, and make the grenade be able to like consistently kill light classes, then I think it would be a solid weapon and people would actually enjoy it. Anyways, on to heavy. So for the heavy, we have the eviction notice. What this weapon does is, well, it has a number of effects actually. It makes you 40% faster when you have them out. On hit, you get a speed boost, and it lets you hit people faster. Like, I think it's scout attack speed, but that might be wrong. It has a 60% damage penalty, so I'm assuming that means you probably do 40 damage per hit like the scout. And it drains your max health while it's active. My suggestion for this is get rid of the stupid health drain effect. I don't know why it's on there. We already have the gloves running urgently. This thing is sort of just like a worse version of those. I'm not really sure why it exists. Maybe it helps on certain rollouts. I haven't really tested it. Like maybe there's certain rollouts where the sort of time you gain from running these, so the time to health ratio is more optimal to the gloves running urgently, but honestly, who cares? Heavy doesn't have a lot of pure melees anymore. Most, like, his only really, like, melees that are actually for hitting people are, like, the Holiday Punch, the Fist, and the Gloves of Killing boxing. Everything else, like, you take more damage when you have it out. So he's got a lot of utility melees. You know, he's sort of the punching class, so it would be nice to have him actually have a more proper melee. So yeah, my suggestion for this is just get rid of the stupid health draining, and if it makes comp players bad, you can get rid of the movement speed buff then too. Like, it doesn't need it. I just miss being able to punch people fast, but I don't know. It just seems like Valve kind of went halfway with this melee. They didn't make it a dedicated melee, and they didn't make it like a sort of dedicated dedicated mini version of the GRE. So now it's sort of just bad. I don't know. I want Heavy to have more dedicated melee, so my suggestion is just get rid of the stupid health drain effect. Anyways, on to NG. So the weapon I have for NG is the Thompson. So what the Thompson does is it is sort of like not a shotgun anymore. It's like the Righteous Bison. You shoot people and it's like one big projectile. It doesn't require ammo. The projectiles can't be deflected, and it does way less damage to buildings, but the sort of main gimmick of the weapon is that if you hit a medic with it, it drains 10% of the medigun charge up close, and if you hit a spy with it, it drains 20% cloak. I think this weapon was made when Valve was trying to be a little bit more experimental, and they didn't really know sort of what unlocks, you know, would actually end up being useful, because it is like an anti-medigun weapon, but no one really uses it. So yeah, anyways, my suggestion is to sort of get rid of the stupid medigun thing and the cloak loss, and just sort of make it a more DM-oriented gun, because I don't think NG really has any medium-range primary options, or like medium-range oriented primary options, so I would get rid of the on-hit things for Uber and Cloak. And then I changed the damage. You could make it 90. It actually does have a smaller clip than the shotgun. I didn't notice that before. It only has 4 bullets, so it's sort of still balanced at close range. And then sort of the key would be making it a solid medium range option. So I'm not sure what you would want the medium range to be. Maybe have it around 60 at whatever medium range is considered. And then I would make the projectiles faster because they currently, I think they have a speed of about 1200, which is actually faster than the rockets, but they feel really hard to aim. I'm not sure what the correct speed would be, so that would probably have to be toyed with. Maybe something between like 1300, I think 1300, which I think is a little faster than pipes, and between maybe 1600, that might be a bit fast. So I think the direct hit is 1600. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah. So main things are up the damage. Make sure it's a good medium range option, and then up the projectile speed so you can actually hit people consistently at medium range. And the trade-off for that would be getting rid of the stupid on-hit stuff that, I mean, I think people don't like playing against this weapon, but it's like not good, so no one uses it. But I could imagine this being a really annoying weapon if you had like 100 NGs with it. But yeah, make it a more DM-focused weapon, and I think you'd actually see people use it, and it would be sort of worth putting time into to learn, and like you'd have a solid sort of alternative NG weapon. Anyways, on to Medic. So the weapon I chose for the Medic is the Overdose. This weapon sort of suffers from a problem that most of Medic's primaries suffer from, which is that it's not the Crusader's crossbow. That's a whole different discussion. There's really no reason to use any of the syringe guns if you're playing seriously, but I might make a video of that at some point. I saw someone else made a video on that, but I didn't want to like spoil myself, so I haven't watched it. But anyways, what the Overdose does is it's basically a normal syringe gun, but it has a 15% damage penalty, and when you have it out, you move faster, up to 20% of your Uber, or how much Uber charge you have right now. So it makes you faster. So the main problem this gun has is there's no reason to use it over the Crusader's crossbow. So we can kind of go a little crazy with buffs if they're not going to nerf the Crusader's crossbow. Actually, sort of make it worth using, I guess. So I have 2 buffs I think could make it worth using. The first one is make the speed active at all times. Basically, it's a passive, which again sounds crazy, but you're giving up the Crusader's crossbow, and sort of that's the main downside. I don't know if that would be completely overpowered or not. It's a little crazy, but I think it'd at least be worth trying. Maybe, you'd actually see people using something that's not the Crusader's crossbow. The second one, I have 3 options. The second one is to buff the speed. I don't know how much you want to buff it. My thought would be maybe give it another 10% so you're faster than scouts. Then it's an actual like getaway weapon, which I assume is the purpose for it, because I don't know why else you'd use it. Then you can sort of outrun scouts and things if your team dies. My third buff, which is a bit milder, is keep it at 20%, but make it so you get the full thing when you're at 50% Uber, so then it's sort of active more often, because right now you need to have full Uber to get the 20%. If it was at 50%, then you sort of, you get value more often. It's like you can more consistently get away from things. You don't have to like hold Uber, which is a very bad play to make. But yeah, I think any one of those options would make it a more interesting weapon, but I definitely would, I want to see what happened if they did the first one and just make it a passive. I think it'd be fucking crazy just to have fast medic all the time. But I don't know. But yeah, anyways, all the syringe guns need love. There's really no reason to use them, but that's just because the Crusader's crossbow is such a crazy good weapon. I guess you could nerf the Crusader's crossbow, but yeah, where's the fun of that? Anyways, on to Sniper. So the weapon I picked for Sniper is the Cleaner's Carbine. Sniper does have some other weapons that could be changed, like the Classic, but yeah, I think the Cleaner's Carbine needs more love, because it's our only SMG sort of alternative in the game. So what the Cleaner's Carbine does is it's like an SMG, but basically it's less powerful. You have a smaller clip size, and slower firing speed, and no random crits. That's important. And then you have a meter you can fill by doing damage, and if you fill up the meter, I think it's, yeah, you right click with it, and then you do mini crits for 8 seconds. So you can do mini crits with any weapon. So right now, sort of the only role it really fills is it fills a weird niche with the bushwhacka. You can crit with the bushwhacka by using Cleaner's Carbine. The problem is the only niche it really fills is done by better weapons. If you want an SMG, well, you use the SMG because it's better. If you want to do crits with the bushwhacka, which I think that should be removed, but that's a whole different conversation, you use Durati because it's just better. So yeah, it really doesn't fill any good niche right now. So I'm not 100% sure on what would make this weapon worth using, because you don't want to overdo it to make it just better than the SMG, but I have a few suggestions. One is to make the Crikey meter do full crits, which might be a little bit crazy, but I don't know, Durati exists, so it could be worth trying. And then the other one is sort of keep it how it is right now, but in addition to doing mini crits, make it give you faster attacking speed, so it's sort of just a DPS buff. The sniper doesn't really have anything else that does that, so I thought it would, I don't know, it could be an interesting mechanic. Maybe that'd be a problem if you're like a good sniper and you're just headshotting everyone. I don't know. It could be interesting though. So yeah, that's the main thing. Add sort of just a DPS buff to it. Make it when you activate the Crikey meter, make it also make you fire faster. You could also maybe lighten up a little bit on some of the sort of the clip size and the firing speed debuffs. I don't know how much should be good. That sort of depends on how they buff the effect, because if it's full crits, they should probably just leave it how it is. But if it's the firing speed effect, maybe you could make it like 10% clip size and like 15% slower firing, just so you can sort of get that faster. How much it increases the firing speed, I don't know, because if it was like 50%, that'd probably be overpowered. But yeah, anyways, I think either give it another effect, or just go crazy, let it do crits. Give us some reason to actually give a shit about the Crikey meter, because right now it's sort of just a bad SMG alternative that it fills a niche that is filled better by a number of different weapons. So yeah, that's it for the Cleaner's Carbine. Now on to the Spy. So the weapon I chose for the Spy is the Enforcer. This is sort of a weird weapon. It has a 20% damage bonus while you're disguised, and its attacks do piercing damage, which basically means they ignore resistances, like the Vaccinator, the Fist of Steel. But the downside is no random crits. That's an important one, and it has a slower firing speed. So this weapon sort of has a troubled history. I think when it came out, it just did more damage, so it was just kind of broken. It was just better than the revolver. Then for a while, they made it so that it only did the bonus damage while you were undisguised. And I mean, I don't know. I didn't really ever hear anyone complain about it, but I did have a few times where I saw spies go on godlike with it, so maybe it was a little overtuned. But the way it currently is, I think it's not too controversial to say it's probably the worst revolver in the game. Okay, the Ambassador exists. I think the Ambi's better if you're like good with the Ambi, though. It's just not worth getting good with the Ambi, but that's another conversation. So yeah, I think it's sort of, I don't know, it's just really not worth using over other alternatives right now. So I have two potential buffs that I think could work for the Enforcer. Revert it back to where the 20% damage applies when you're undisguised. I'm not really sure if that was overpowered. I only really encountered it 2 or 3 times, and while it was a thing, and I have like 9,000 hours, and I think I had 6,000 when it was sort of in that state. So I mean, I know that's anecdotal, but take that for what it is. If any of you like fucking 20,000 hour Giga Chads out there think it would be overtuned, well, I have another one I think could be interesting. Make it sort of another utility weapon. So I think the only really utility revolver we have right now is the L'Étranger, which is like a cloak revolver. Everything else is kind of geared towards just, you know, doing more damage or doing damage sort of differently. So my suggestion is make the Enforcer do more damage to buildings, which could end up being horrible, but I don't know. I kind of like the thought of just giving Spy revolvers that sort of help it more in certain situations. So I'm not really sure how this would work. Maybe just have the 20% damage building bonus apply to buildings only. I don't know. I think that could be really interesting. I'm open to other utility effects if that sounds horrible. I'm not really sure. I don't really know how annoying that would be. I could imagine NG players just wanting to fucking die. But I don't know. I think that would maybe make it worth using. And now it sort of has a niche where, like, okay, if there's like 20 fucking, you know, sentries or something, now the Enforcer actually has you have a reason to use it. Because right now it has a niche, but it's so kind of obscure. Like, I don't know. Like, how often is, you know, damage resistance a problem? And your first gut instinct is, I will use the revolver. Nah, you're probably just gonna backstab them. But yeah, anyways, that's my sort of piece on the Enforcer. Either sort of revert it back to, I think, pre-Jungle Infernos when they nerfed it, or make it some kind of utility revolver. My suggestion for the utility is make it do more damage to sentries. I like the piercing damage. I like where they were going with that, where they're trying to make the revolver sort of do something interesting. But yeah, I don't know. If there's any other utility effects that would maybe be better, I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Maybe you got some like super smart idea. I couldn't really think of anything else. So anyways, that's it for this video. Those were sort of 9 weapons I think could be pretty decent with just I call it a tiny buff, but some of those buffs were a bit bigger than others. But some of them really were tiny. Like, Caber is just a very small adjustment, and the Airstrike is literally like one more stat line, and I think it would be as good as stock then. But yeah, if there's any weapons you think need buffs, or you sort of disagree with me, I mean, I don't really care if you disagree with me on how the weapons should be buff. I'm sort of open to any idea. I just want game balance changes at this point. It's been 5 years. But yeah, if there's sort of any weapons you think should be buffed, or you have any other suggestions for the weapons I mentioned, like how they should be changed, let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching the video, and as always, have a good day. Goodbye.